die woord van die Here. Moenie bang wees nie, want ek is by jou, sê die Here. Moenie bekommerd wees nie, ek is jou God. Ek versterk jou, ek help jou, ek hou jou vas. En met my eie hand red ek jou. Jesus. Jara dankie. Jara dankie. Jara my silan pati. Jara my siluapi. Jara my silan pati.
Beloved, good day to you. This is Faith Without Borders. I'm your host, Pastor Kelvin Sauls. So glad that you are joining us. That was Crystal Josephs, and she took us to church. Yeah, that's where I'm from, and that was a very, very powerful song that is based on Isaiah 41, verse 10, which simply says to us, and these are the words, I believe, that we all need to hear during these perilous and dangerous times of COVID-19, a pandemic that has swept the world, shaken the world in so many ways. And so Isaiah 41, verse 10 simply says, do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. And I know if I was at Jireh International Ministries in El Dorado Park, or if I was at Crystal, church, or if I was at the Free Baptist Church or any Baptist church, that's what they're going to be going down with if they were able to gather today, because that's how we worship and get down and give God praise in South Africa, but in my hometown, of El Dorado Park. And so hats off to my folks, family and friends, in Eldos and Annandale and Cliptown and the surrounding areas. As I mentioned to you last week, this is the second of two parts when we are zooming in and focusing in on the challenge of COVID-19 in the land of my birth, South Africa, and we are meeting at the intersection of South Los Angeles and South Africa to see how we can go a little deeper and understand what is happening in other parts of the world. And of course, Mzansi is my beloved country, and so I work hard to keep up with what's happening there and stay in touch with folk who are on the front lines. And so today, once again, we are meeting at the intersection of South Los Angeles and South Africa, and we're exploring the topic Audacity and Adaptation amid COVID-19, pursuing a faith for life. And today, it is a joy for me to have some old friends and some new friends, joining me for this conversation, individuals who are on the front line of serving their communities during these perilous times. And so, so glad to have, of course, our resident, MD, Dr. Mary Augusta Adam is with us. So glad that she's able to join us. And I have to just say that I do appreciate her for working with me and collaborating with me in putting these panelists together, bringing them together for this conversation. So really appreciate Mary for her partnership with Faith Without Borders. Also, my brother and dear friend, Apostle Gary Lamont, who is the senior pastor and apostle at Jireh International Ministries in my hometown of El Dorado Park. If I am home and in Eldos, this is the church that I go to, and I tell you, that's the song they sang. And boy, when they sing this song at Jireh, let me say this, all hell breaks loose. And I did say hell because hell will be out of there, because so when they sing this song, they sing the hell out of folk. Amen. And they sing heaven into them. So good to have Apostle Gary Lamont, here with us. Also, a high school friend and who is a colleague now. She's in education. Renata Miles is with us. She's an educator, and she's going to be speaking to us, from the education perspective, as well as a joy to have Simon White with us, who is also an educator and the founder of a very, very impactful and powerful school that is right there in Cosmo City, which is right between Johannesburg and Pretoria, in 4 ways, doing extraordinary work there, bringing together, entrepreneurship as well as, lifting up the ability of our young people there. We all know that we are in the midst of what's going on, and that's why we wanted to start with that song, because here at Faith Without Borders, our mission is to engage in the education and mobilization of multiracial and multi-religious transnational movements for social equity and planetary justice globally. We connect with what's happening locally here in Los Angeles, regionally in the state of California, nationally in the United States, as well as internationally with what's happening around the world. And that's why we are zooming in on this intersection between South Los Angeles and South Africa, and to explore how folk have engaged in adaptation as well as maintain their audacity during these uncertain times. So welcome. Good to have you. And I want to welcome all of my guests today. It's evening there, so I say good evening, goeie naand, sawubona, etc. Let's see, how we are. Let's start with just quickly. I'm just going to invite each one of you to just go around quickly and just say something about who you are and what you do, and what drives us here are the words that Dr. Mary put into my spirit several months ago, which is fear out, faith up. And so how are you making sure that fear is out and faith is up during these times? I know we might have a delay, and so we'll adjust to that. But just say quickly your name once again, where you are serving, and also how you are serving, the community that you are part of. So we'll start with Dr. Mary, and then we'll go with Apostle Lamont, and then we'll go to Renata, and then after that, we'll hit Simon. Dr. Mary.
You can Kelvin, and to the panelists, good evening as well to you, to the listeners, and to the viewers. Lovely to be back with you again this chilly Johannesburg evening. I'm, as Reverend Kelvin has mentioned, I am a medical doctor in the field of obstetrics and gynecology, but I'm also combine that with infectious disease, and I'm part of the COVID team for our department. And so definitely not just in the front line, but as I like to say, we're in the fire. So, and I know that Jesus is with us in this fire as we continue to move forward, mobilizing the masses, educating them, and helps both preventative and curative medicine during this time of COVID. And just also to rest assured, or to bring about a piece about this, is that we not only focused on COVID, we also focused on still the other ailments and illnesses that do come through our hospitals. So don't fear when you come to the hospital, we say you have COVID. No, we just making sure that we're practicing international standards, local standards in terms of prevention and curative medicine. That's what I do at the largest hospital in the Southern Hemisphere, Baragwanath Hospital. Thank you
Lord
very
have
much.
mercy. I already learned a new word. I always learn new words from Dr. Mary because she's much smarter than I am. Learned the word curative. Lord have mercy. Okay. I'm writing that one down in the name of Jesus. Curative. Apostle Gary Lamont, my brother, my friend, just tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about Jireh Ministries International.
Yeah, well, greetings to you and greetings to our panelists, and also greetings to all our viewers and all our listeners. My voice is a bit hoarse. If you do about 3 services or 4 services on a Sunday, your voice is hoarse. But yeah, my name is Gary Lamont. I comes from the south of Johannesburg. I don't know where the doctor comes from because it's freezing on their side. But on the south of Johannesburg, it is quite hot here. There's some hot people staying in the south. But yeah, I'm the presiding prelate of Jireh Ministries International. We oversee a few branches in South Africa. And it's such an honor and a privilege just to be a part of the lives of people. If you want my resume, we'll do it later on. But to Reverend Kelvin, thank you so much, man, for having me on today. I'm privileged and honored to talk to you from the south of Johannesburg and you in the south of Los Angeles. It is just good to talk to you and to all the viewers. Man, thank you for being a friend, and thank you to everybody that's taken part of this panelist. It is a very interesting topic, and I work in El Dorado Park, the crime-free area in South Africa, and I believe it is the crime-free area in South Africa. And yeah, we do what we can do for a community, we do what we can do for a country, and thank you so much for this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to engaging on what we want to talk about tonight. For you, it's either morning, Reverend Kelvin.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm just waking up already at 2 cups of coffee. I got my water here with watermelon and some other stuff in it, so I can kind of stay awake and all that good stuff. But so we're just starting the day here. Glad you guys are leaving some of the day to us, so we can enjoy it as well. Renata, Miles, we went to high school together. Please do not, share any secrets of what I did in high school. If you do, I want to let you know I have close connections, with some folk that can, come and take care of you and your family. Okay, so just be careful what you share. All right, Renata, so good to see you, and thank you, Mary, for reconnecting us. And please introduce yourself and just tell us what you've been up to.
Okay. Good morning to you, Kelvin, and good evening to the rest of the panel. It's such a privilege to be part of it. Kelvin, I won't say anything. I will clearly keep this just between the two of us. Don't you worry. I'm a teacher by profession. I've been teaching just over 30 years at a secondary school or high school, and I must say it's still an awesome experience. And in this time, I might add, very, very different. Yes, teaching, and my husband, Andre Miles, is a pastor as well, and a teacher. Mm-hmm. So we work together. We've been working in the community all our lives. I'm born here. I was raised here in Kliptown, Extension 9 area later on. Attended school with Kelvin, high school, like he said. And now I'm still part of the school family and the school community. And I'm privileged here to be here this evening so that we can share what we are also encountering being part of the El Dorado Park community. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Renata. So good to see you. And please, our regards and love to Andre and all of you guys as you do what you're doing. Let's go over to the north. And kind of hit the Pretoria area there. Simon is with us. Simon, would you just quickly introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about the extraordinary work that you are doing in that community of Cosmos City, which is a new township, right outside of Four Ways. And just, what have you been up to, my brother?
Hi, good day, everybody. Yeah, it's indeed a pleasant privilege and opportunity to be able to connect with yourselves and people that seem to share a vested interest in the upliftment of their communities and things like that. Because it's always been one of my key points and areas of the video changed. Sorry. The video changed. We just changed it right away. Here we are. Okay. Key point of concern that some of us that have had the opportunity and privilege of going to tertiary and being part of the middle class, we don't seem to do much for our communities where we come from. In terms of my background, I've also been a teacher in the initial years, and then I went into business. But I've always had this calling of education, because I know the power of education, and things like that. And about 7-8 years ago, I took on the challenge of starting the school, but we decided we'll start it differently because we want to align the school with the economic needs of people. Because one of the biggest frustrations has always been people going to school and not getting jobs, and the issue of self-empowerment and economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, has always been an issue of neglect within the township community. So we deliberately went out of our way to create a entrepreneurial school that focus on entrepreneurship and innovation. Those are the subjects that we're teaching in addition to all the other subjects. And we've achieved the desired results that we've set ourselves out to do. But we're also extensively involved in the community in various different shapes and forms. And I think this is a wonderful exercise to engage with yourselves. And I'm very pleased and delighted to be engaged with yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Our connection, Simon, of course, is you went to Fred Norman High School in Annandale, and I believe that's the school where my third oldest brother, that's where he taught in Annandale. So we do have a connection there, and I'm glad that you activated alumni to see how we can pay it forward, as you say, around always reaching back and reaching for a hand up with our folk. That's what I'm just so proud of in terms of the relationship I've maintained there, and to see, what individuals such as Dr. Mary, Apostle Lamont, and Renata, and you are doing. That is an inspiration to me, even though I'm 20,000 miles away, to continue to make sure that I stay connected and that I pay it forward to reach back and be a lift up, for our folk there. I am just delighted and privileged to have all of you here, because we're going to touch on the impact of education, and that's why Renata, you and Simon are here. The impact on our faith community. Apostle Lamont is going to share around those pieces, and we're going to start, of course, with Dr. Mary, just to kind of give us, just a brief update around what is the state of COVID-19 and its impact in South Africa in general, and then we always want to zoom in on how this is impacting our townships, whether they are in Cape Town or in Durban, or in the Free State, or even in KwaZulu, Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, the same piece, but also in South Johannesburg and North Johannesburg. But Dr. Mary, just give us a quick update, from a medical and scientific perspective, if you will, please.
Thank you so much. And just as a South African perspective on COVID, we're sitting now at 153,000, just slightly over 153,000 confirmed cases of COVID in our country. But also, just to add to that, is that what is coming through a lot now is that people don't want to only focus on what are the positive cases, but they also want to pause and have a look at what's happening with the recoveries, particularly within our provinces, because we need to shed hope and light on this condition, because from the beginning, we've been speaking about the death and the gloom about COVID-19. So yes, even though we have over 153,000 confirmed cases, with the rise to over 4,000 cases per day, or new infections every day. We also see that in a province like Gauteng, that became the epicenter at the beginning of this month, we see that now we have recovery rates of close to 33% out of that total population. So that's quite reassuring, and not that we should relax in our efforts to uphold the 6 pillars of the response to COVID, but what we should be doing is saying that, yes, people are recovering from COVID-19, and people are living to share their testimonies. In the Gauteng province currently, let me just do this, and specifically because in El Dorado Park, it's part of the city of Johannesburg, and we've got a number of regions, or it's subdivided in regions, and the south of Johannesburg falls under region G, or city of Joburg G, and that includes Orange Farm, Villiers Farm, Ennerdale, Lenasia, El Dorado Park, and Protea South. And there we found that there's a total of 5,498. That was the stats from yesterday, with recoveries of 3,179 recoveries. So that's an important thing to take note of. Yes, there are people who are dying and from the COVID-19, but these are still looking at people with comorbidities such as hypertension, diabetes, and other underlying conditions. And the age factor is still a factor. And yes, still we see males more than females contracting the virus and actually having severe disease from it, but yet we're seeing that they do recover. Even some of them, they do have prolonged hospital stays, ICU, oxygenation, but there are patients who actually are able to self-quarantine at home, and that's an important thing to mention to our communities, to our country, and to the world, that South Africa is we're there, but we're getting better at dealing with COVID-19.
Great, thank you for that. Indeed, we want to let folk know that, when you do, prevention is the key. However, when you do, test, a positive, it is a detour and not a dead end. Recovery is possible. That's why we lift up that scripture, Isaiah 41, verse 10, just to let folk know that this is the God that we serve. He promised to never leave us nor forsake us. So the church might be closed in terms of the building, but God's grace and God's healing power remains wide open, for folk to experience. And as we bring together health and faith, or science and faith, that is a necessary, and a powerful combination as we look at what needs to happen. We'll get to some of the comorbidities that you are mentioning, or even some of the pre-existing challenges, social and political, that we've had in South Africa, that has in so many ways, exacerbated, the impact of, this pandemic. But let's move on. We know South Africa is a very, very spiritual country, religious country. Faith plays a very, very important role in the lives of people. South Africa is also a very pluralist country, around that, and but faith is very, very important to a lot of people, or to most people in South Africa. And so we know that churches have had to close because of social distancing, and just some of the risks involved around how COVID is spread. And that, of course, has brought some challenges about. But, now that, this is actually increasing, and it's really testing people at, on so many levels, and we'll get to some of those. But I want to bring in Apostle Lamont, just to share with us some perspective from a faith leader, who is very, very active in the community and with his congregation, and is connected with other faith leaders and pastors around the country. Can you just share with us, how do we as people of faith, approach this? How do we, work our way through this? There's a lot of denial going on. There's a lot of questioning about God. Why ask God? And all of that that's going on. How do we, in so many ways, fortify our faith and experience a blessed assurance, during this time? Apostle Lamont.
Thank you, Reverend Kelvin. Yeah, man, it is indeed a challenging time.
Mm-hmm.
If you know me, I'm an optimistic person.
Mm-hmm.
My life evolves around being optimistic. But I must admit, it's a very challenging time for the church. Challenging time in the sense that people are questioning the authenticity of God.
Mm.
They are questioning if God is real.
Mm-hmm.
And if God is real, where is God in all of this that's happening?
Mm-hmm.
Where is God when we go through this pandemic? And many people are even asking, why would God allow this pandemic to come across, or rather come on us in the entire world? Well, it is very simple. I need to say it up front and outright that this pandemic is not caused by God. It is not God sending this pandemic to the world to destroy the world. And that's the truth. Jesus asked this question. He says, when he returns, will he find faith? This is a direct fight on our faith system. It's a fight on our belief system. It's a fight on what we believe God can do. Because the enemy is not after your money. It's not after your education, your wealth. It's after your faith. Because it is faith to please God. And without faith, it is impossible to please God. And so as a church, as churches per se, we have this challenge where you keep on having to motivate the people and let them understand that even in this pandemic, just like Israel was in Egypt for 450 years, God delivered them.
Yeah.
God is going to deliver us out of this. We have to bring across a message of hope, a message of peace, and a message to let people understand that this too shall pass. This too shall pass.
Yeah.
We are in this thing, but this thing is not in us. That we need to understand. We are in it, but it's not in us.
Yeah.
We have a war going on around us, but there's not a war on the inside of us. One thing I can assure you and assure our listeners and our viewers, and also the faith community, is that the system that the enemy wants to bring in through this virus, this system will not succeed because we operate under a total different system. A total different system. We operate under a faith system, and that is what's going to work for us. So my word to all our viewers and listeners is that don't give in, because Isaiah 43 from 18 says, God says he's doing a new thing. He's doing a new thing. I believe God is going to take us to heights in him that eye has not seen nor ear heard what God has in store. After this pandemic, we are going to see and praise God for what he has done. I also need to say this, that we are born in the right time. No one else would have been able to bear what we are bearing today.
Mm-hmm.
We are born at the right time. God will not give you something that you cannot bear or overcome.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if Apostle Paul was alive, and he would have said you would not have made it today, because what we're going through today is things that we alone can bear. So we in this thing, we're going to overcome it with our faith. And that's the confidence that I have in this God, that we will overcome this. This thing, listen to me, our viewers and listeners, this thing will pass. We will not succumb to COVID-19. COVID-19 will succumb to the word of God.
Amen, amen. That's indeed a word up. I'll remember, when we were going through Hurricane Katrina, and I was part of relief efforts in New Orleans. I saw a sign that I'll never forget. That was right there. Planted on the beach in the Gulf Coast, and that sign said, "Katrina was big, but God is bigger." And I have just been, holding on to that, saying COVID-19 is big, but God is bigger. And to that extent, we have to realize, that, God did not cause it, but God can use it. Amen. And so that is just so powerful, for us to realize around the fact that we have been, made more than conquerors, and what we need to do is to make sure that we follow the direction of washing our hands, the direction that comes around wearing face protection and keeping that distance, that we, need to have. We can be 6 feet apart physically, but we can still be connected spiritually in so many ways. I want to stay on the spiritual piece and bring Renata in. Before, you talk as an educator, you mentioned that, you and your husband, Pastor Andre Miles, are pastoring and serving a Free Baptist church, there. Can you maybe share, some sense of, how is that going? And, with the challenge of this pandemic, how's the congregation doing, and, that immediate community that congregation is serving? Just give us a perspective, if you will, or as we say, around here, a first lady's perspective, around this, if you will, Renata.
Thank you, Kelvin. Firstly, from the spiritual side, it's very challenging. We've tried to have normal, but clearly there's nothing normal in how it used to be. So we had to adapt quickly. And in terms of the church, the closure obviously meant we could not have formal church like we know it. So we have a WhatsApp group now and other medias of communicating and having daily devotions and pray for one another, and also to intercede. And then the greatest need, apart from just being electronically and by social media being connected, people still suffered, and they're still suffering. So food parcels, quite essential, where deliveries had to be made physically. You still have to go to the congregation and the community, because you don't limit it to the congregation only. And what saddens us is that all this is available, but how it's orchestrated, how it's given out, that can many times be challenging in terms of it doesn't really get to the people who really need to get it. So this is where the church played a great role. Every church where they could actually feed people they know, get to the grassroots of the elderly, the sickly, the people who could not afford to even get up or come out of their homes. And that really helped a lot in getting, if you know your community, if you know your congregation, and you know the need. And this is how we initially started when COVID, the level 5 lockdown was initiated. That was the greatest challenge at the time. And then also funerals, and when people become sick, they phone and they expect you to come as normal. Pastor, I'm not well. Will you come and serve me with communion? Will you come and pray with my mom? One of my parents have been hospitalized, whatever the scenario, they still expected you to do as before, to come out as before. And it breaks your heart when you cannot service people as you're supposed to. And we quickly had to work around that. Funerals, challenging. The limited 50 people only. Families, we still don't understand. We don't get it. Here in Africa, well, I suppose everywhere, when we go to a funeral, it's attended well, better than a Sunday morning church service. So it's always been a good platform of spreading the gospel. And now it's so different and it's so sad.
Indeed. I mean, for us, it's for funerals, the maximum is 10 people. So we can certainly identify, with the limitation around that. Because for us in Los Angeles, we are right now the epicenter, and our leadership, both grassroots and elected, we've come together to make sure that we get the message out around the fact that until there is a vaccine or any therapeutic, solutions for this, we are the solutions. We are the ones in this moment that we've been waiting for, and so it is so essential for us to do that. Indeed, as you mentioned, Renata, this is a season of extraordinary, innovation and an extraordinary, adaptation. I mean, we are called to really, bust the box and be creative, and see how we can, yes, be about high tech, but while we do that, make sure we don't lose that holy touch, that we have called to be, in that touch of hope and compassion, that we need to be, for such a time as this. So thanks for that. Let's transition to the education piece, because, again, I call this an intersection because, there are so many similarities. Just to let you guys know, we are dealing with food insecurity here in South Los Angeles. And so, we, every week, work with over 2,000 families to make sure that they have food, because of the lack of access to food and the challenge around food equity, in the United States in general. But of course, for us in South Los Angeles, we're paying attention to that and making sure that we are responsive to those needs. So we want to thank all of our partners working with it, and for Peace Chapel Church for hosting us in doing this in South Los Angeles. But also, we are right now in the middle of the education question, around, should, learners go back to school? What does distant learning, mean? We still have the challenge, of the digital divide, where not everybody has equal access to internet or to devices, that can connect to the internet for distance learning. So all of that's a pre-existing condition to, COVID-19 that we haven't dealt with. And now, once again, it's been exposed, just like so many other, pre-existing conditions that's been exposed. But education, we know, is huge in South Africa. We are, of course, still recovering, from, what happened during apartheid, and this transition, for the last 20 past years continues to be, a challenge, for us. So, Simon, Renata, we want to just hear from the two of you, around what's happening around education. Renata is, of course, in public education. Simon, you have your own school that you're working with in terms of, stepping out and being creative and innovative around connecting that entrepreneurship piece, which then connects, with the economic upliftment that needs to take place, in South Africa still, which is another pre-existing condition, right? Economic inequality, in South Africa. So let's start with the public sector first. Renata, if you can give us some perspective around that, and then Simon, we're going to hand the baton over to you to maybe share, some of your, perspective, having gone into the private sector and coming out of it. Renata, you want to share a little bit about, schools closing, opening, big debate in Parliament, and all of that.
Kelvin, if I have to go back, I'll try and keep it very brief, but it's very difficult, I must say, because I have a lot on my mind, but I hope I won't be too long. I remember the 20th, around about the 20th of March, we closed for the first time, of 2020. We closed for the first time. That was just as the first quarter of the year, school year finished. And we closed for quite a significant time, which obviously to any child, it was, or any person on earth now, in terms of the pandemic and COVID-19, it was a anxious time. It was a time of unsurety, and we just could not understand and grasp what we were heading into. And we just took it in our stride at first. So from the 20th of March, it was treated as a vacation, a holiday. Then we learned more about COVID. But in the meantime, children were roaming the streets. Life went on like normal. They were playing, no precautionary measures in general. We weren't too worried about it to a great extent because it was an unknown thing. And then when the 9th, as time progressed in the weeks of lockdown 5, which was extreme, we weren't allowed, we were very limited. But I don't think children really grasped how limited, the limitation of the lockdown in township, the lockdown 5. It was like normal. People would go around doing their things, trying to go to places, although they were all these regulations put into place, it wasn't necessarily followed and adhered because of the newness of the whole pandemic. Then we had schools reopening on the 9th. But as it even opened, even before that, it was debatable. Should it open or should it not? Because now COVID-19 started becoming a reality. People became sick. People became infected. People died. We started to put faces and names to people being infected now. And this caused great concern for the community, in education. Can we have learners and children back who's been roaming freely? No masks in general, and I'm generalizing now, no adhering to the lockdown rules. How are we going to cope with them in a class? How are we going to get them to know about the social distancing? Will they stay within the demarcated areas we have in the classes? We're so challenged with the massive classes we've always had. This is an old problem where we have too many learners in a class. And now we could not have 50 and just less than 50 in a class. And now we had to strategize. And we followed all the rules, the guidelines, according to our department. Having lesser learners in a class. But it's still a concern because many learners only started wearing a mask the day they entered the school, the 9th of June, when we returned. And it was like, that was their first experience with sanitizing, pre-sanitizing, post-sanitizing, washing your hands, following social distancing. It was a wake-up call, a rude awakening for a lot of them. They literally sat like zombies in the class, not responding with this mask on, sitting there and wondering, why am I here? Even as teachers, it was new to us as well. And we were trying to cope and be brave and seem like, don't worry, this is the new normal. But it's also something that was difficult for us to adapt to. And we had to quickly come to terms with the fact that we had to learn more about this. We had to have the policy in place. But in reality, I work in the isolation room, if I think of it, at school. Isolation room, so when learners are not well and they're at school, or when they're at home and they're not well, they report to us, and we put them in on a little register where we write down their symptoms, and we have screening and all that happening. But what I want to come to is that our own community and our own children and our parents did not necessarily understand the procedure, the new procedure we were following and the protocol. And it's still challenging for a lot of them. They feel that we at times we're being extra. It's a nuisance to go to a doctor and get a clearance medical report. It's asking too much, because you must remember, for many parents, a school is a daycare center where they know, at least while I'm at work, my child is safe somewhere. So this could no longer be like that. When children come and go as they please, they needed to report if they do not come. They needed to tell us that they've taken ill, and we needed to know whether they were infected or not. At our school, since we've reopened the 9th of June, we've closed 4 times unofficially. From the 9th of June up to now, when we closed the 24th of July officially. Why did we close 4 times? Because every time when someone was infected, we had 4 teachers alone being infected, and this meant closure of the school. To be sanitized, deep clean, you name it. Just be creating a safe environment for us all to come in again. So every time we had disturbances for a couple of days, what does that mean to a child? It means to many of them just another holiday. Many of them cannot work on their own because of all the challenges that you've also mentioned a few, not having a technology, ready available data, smartphones, or just this very space at home. They live in this little mkuku, the small hut or the small home. And how will you work if all of you are at home, if you're all cooped in there? You can't work like that. So these are just a few of the things that I mentioned. Maybe if I get an opportunity, I can continue, but at school, sanitize, just the word teaching them to sanitize, pre-sanitizing, post-sanitizing, before you touch anything, after you've used the restrooms. It's quite a daily task. Every day you need to remind them. From the morning when we come in at 7 in the morning, when we start screening them and explaining to them over and over, you are not well, you can't come in. You need to go to the clinic. You need to go to and see a doctor. You haven't spent enough time in isolation. Maybe if you were involved or one of your family members have been infected. So it was always this thing of, but I want to be at school because children feel safe at school. I want to be here. Can't I come? And this was, and still is, a great challenge for us, Kelvin, in terms of, we want the learners to be there for education, but how do we have education? How do we have this daily preparation? And yet we have disturbances from, like I said before, there are 4 unofficial breaks already because of infections within the school itself.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks so much. You've clearly described just the diverse challenges that could take place, and at some point I want to ask Dr. Mary just to respond to some of that from a medical perspective, but then also for all of us, how can the faith community respond to that, even though they are still a limited gathering time, but what educational, preventive educational role can community clinics as well as faith communities play around this, because clearly what you're describing, it seems as if parents need the necessary education as to how to partner with educators around, this. But it also
Yeah.
begs the question as
Yes.
to what is the government doing, in terms of making sure that schools and educators have the necessary equipment, for learners to be in school. Should they be in school? That's the big debate. Should they be in school or not? And if they are in school, are we prepared? Have we made the necessary preparation and adaptation of these learning environments for the students, to be there, so that they can know that their safety is our priority, around this. So we'll get to that, in a few. But I want to bring in, um, Simon, just to share, some perspective. I know you have started your own school. How is this similar or different for you as you do the work that you're doing, in Cosmos City, at your school, which is a connection between, of course, entrepreneurship, as well as education, economic upliftment, as well as, educational excellence. Simon?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, I can only empathize with Renata as experience, because those are some of the things that we foresaw, and some of our colleagues in public schools were telling us the difficulties they were experiencing and what they foresaw. And it was just a matter of time, for things to happen. And as some people say, when the chickens come home for roasting and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
When it first started, about the 20th of March, more or less, the schools fortunately closed. So there was a school closure, and it coincided with the lockdown. So there was a bit of a break for the learners and things like that, and the schools closed. But when the schools reopened, we could continue, but emphasize the issue of sanitizing, washing your hands, and everything else. And I think the difference between our school and the Renata school, we are predominantly a primary school,
Mm-hmm.
although we do have grade 8 learners, whereas Renata's the high school. The learners at the primary school are more obliging and more amendable to instructions and guidance and taking advice, so that was also quite good, because we could engage the learners and sometimes make it playful, fun, and everything else, and in terms of sanitizing and washing your hands and stuff like that. But over time, as the infection increased in the country, and with the second lockdown, when the schools were closed again, it became a bit more difficult. But prior to that, we had deliberately decided that we have to find solutions and we have to do things differently. We see the impending danger, and what we then did was that we then looked at having remote schooling, and we use a very simple tool, which is WhatsApp. It's not the best tool, but it is quite effective if you apply it correctly, And so we used WhatsApp for remote schooling, and it satisfied our parents. The learners learned a lot, and the teachers, we were quite flexible in terms of using it, right? So, but I think we used it for 2.5 months with some degree of satisfaction. But over time, it wears down, because at the end of the day, we all social creatures. Children are more social creatures than us. They want to interact, talk, and everything else. And being isolated from home for such a long time is a bit difficult. We have learners from different spectrums, others from Deep Split, which is generally a squatter camp, Cosmos City, Four Ways, and the other surrounding areas like Chartwell. So the learner population is fairly diverse, and things like that. We had emphasized the parents must try very hard to ensure that the learners have cell phones, and when the parents and the learners went home together during the second lockdown, it was much more easier, because the parents could coordinate and work with the children, and in some cases give the children their own devices to work with. So they kind of like made things easy to some extent. We achieved the desired results by and large, and and it was really working quite effectively. We then realized and saw certain opportunities in that respect, that you can apply remote schooling effectively using technology, because obviously it was new grounds that we had to kind of like cover and things like that. And but over time, the schools closed again, and we could sense the children were tiring, and not participating as actively as they wanted to. We then decided to scale down to engage the parents, and then we had 3 days of schooling as an example, right? But unfortunately, when we kind of like agreed on the 3 days of schooling, the numbers started to rise in South Africa and more so in Gauteng, and parents became more scared in terms of their children being exposed, their grannies at home, and parents and other family members having underlying conditions and things like that. So it was quite a divisive issue amongst parents, because some parents had to go to work. They never had anyone with the children. And is another to say, schools to some extent are glorified, day care centers, and fulfill a role to support parents when they go to work and things like that. So that was one of the other challenges, basically. So where we are at this point in time is that we have an arrangement whereby the children come to school 1 day per week only. And as they come to school 1 day per week only, because what it does, it allows us to check on their work, make sure that they do what they have to do, but also at the same time, the teachers can teach and we try and cover all the subjects, etc. And it's been working quite well in that regard, in the sense that the children are learning. They come with their masks. We impose strict discipline. I'm an old school person, and we maintain an old school culture at our school, and the model is working quite well in terms of 1 day schooling and remote schooling and things like that.
Okay.
Just one thing that I want to say, because you spoke about the government and everything else. This whole, this is not the first time the world has been in this situation. There's been various different world wars and the Spanish flu and whatever else. And my view has been that when situations like these unfold, it demands and calls for great leadership and people to be innovative, right? And we foresaw this. It happened in China and other countries before South Africa was struck, right? And we had 2 months to prepare, in all fairness. And having 2 months to prepare, education also being a priority, I don't think sufficient energy was directed towards doing that. Because if now, government's talking now about giving South African Airways another 16 billion rands, right? After they've given them 35 billion rands in the past. Now, if the government and other role players said it was a wonderful opportunity to bring the public schools on par with the more wealthier schools. We're not a wealthy school, by the way, but I'm just mentioning in general, right? And inject enormous innovation and make technology tools available to children, right? It would have cost them less than 6 billion rands, and using the various different broadcasting stations and train children, unemployed youth, graduates, to assist the schools and the teachers in terms of applying technology. We would have achieved far much more in terms of moving to the fourth industrial revolution, and also looking at different ways of teaching and applying things differently. And I strongly believe that it was a lost opportunity that we have not harvested or used, and it's going to haunt us. And there's a big risk that we stand to lose. Really stand to lose the entire year, you know. And even with this latest, my personal views, the latest closure of the schools, and I understand that different schools have different capacities, different leadership, different resources, right? And it does pose a challenge. And I'm not taking a lot of things for granted. I do understand and I do know some of the challenges. But I sincerely do believe that if the pressure to close the schools, because the more emphasis is focused on the problems and the challenges, and we don't apply sufficient energy and resources and time to look at possible solutions and how can we do things differently. And if we had done that, right, we would not have to close the schools to the extent to which we do, and to the extent and the risk of this entire school year being lost, because that's exactly what's going to happen. And I don't believe that it was entirely based on scientific reasons. The unions started to have a massive role to play in this regard, and they did contribute, unfortunately. And I think we need to inject more energy of finding different solutions and different ways of doing it, because I don't believe this will be the last end of the virus. There'll be new viruses that will emerge, and we need to foresee that and start preparing, because we can't every time. We cannot let this generation of learners be the generation of learners that will be entirely unemployable. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much, Brother Principal. Again, you know, education is a matter of national security. And,
Yes.
you know, a lot of us certainly were greatly disturbed by that, you know, those funds going to the South African Airways, you know, that has been over the years grossly mismanaged and by inept leadership. You know, South Africa is a democracy right now. And I love my country enough to criticize, you know, when there are misappropriation, such as what's going on right now, you know, as well as just some of the other decisions that's been made, you know, especially on the economic side, you know, I mean, we're trying to function as if, you know, there has not been, you know, economic marginalization, you know, in the country, you know, so you cannot be, you know, the world's greatest democracy, yet try to undergird that democracy with the world's worst economic system, which is trickle-down economics. I mean, let's just be clear about that. So, and we see how this is now playing out as to, you know, the investment in education. Again, let me repeat, you know, the quality of education is a matter of national security, because, you know, it lets us know, you know, how we are willing to invest, you know, in the future. Clearly, to teach is to touch a life forever. And that's why I always tip my hat, you know, to educators for the work that you all are doing. We want to quickly shift back to our scientists, you know, and our medical, you know, expert that's on the panel, Dr. You know, Mary Adam. You know, clearly, you know, the scientific community, the medical community has to guide us around, you know, this whole piece of, you know, education, you know, in physical location, or education in remote location or virtual location, right? You know, Dr. Mary, you've heard what our, you know, educators have said. How do we, you know, especially when it comes to preventative education, we've certainly talked about that, you know, in terms of that the important role of this for parents, you know, for extended family, you know, as we seek to surround our, you know, children, you know, and be a village around them to make sure that they have the necessary protection, they have the necessary direction in terms of how to behave, you know, during this time of abnormalcy, and engage in the necessary adaptation that they need to engage in for such a time as this. Your thoughts, Doc?
Thank you so much, and also to have the educators on board to give their perspective of what's happening on the ground. Certainly, from a health perspective, through research, it was shown that it would, in a way, be safe for children to go back to school. And this came out of a study from China where 90% of the schooling population, that's the learners or children, would contract COVID, but they would have mild disease. And in having mild disease, this would mean that they would not be able to transmit the virus because the virus in their systems are of such low viral loads. But in saying that, again, each individual is different in terms of the symptomology that they actually present with. And therefore, in that, the more obviously they display symptoms, and as our teacher Renata has mentioned, some of them would want to come to school even knowing when they're sick. And this is something that predates COVID, where we know that if you're not well, it's not advisable to go to school or go to work, or rather to go to your healthcare practitioner, whether that's in whichever level of primary of care that you can go to, whether it's a GP clinic or to a hospital, depending on how severe your symptoms are. Have that checked out, and then have a medical certificate, because obviously in every setting you need a medical certificate to say why you are absent from that particular space. Coming back to the children, like I've said, according to the study from China, because that's where that started, 90% of them didn't show any, well, they had mild symptoms, and therefore it showed that they could go back to school. Out of the 10%, they did display severe symptoms. And even through that process, they're trying to understand a condition called pediatric inflammatory. Sometimes, yeah, it feels like I want to rap or something. I don't know. Inflammatory multi-system syndrome. And so, because a lot of these children out of that 10% have actually showed that it's actually, they have contracted COVID. So they're looking at what is the link between these two conditions. And so, yes, and we've seen this on social media, how parents would also show this on social media, the effect that COVID has on their child. And I think those images, together with that 10% that has have severe illness, that brought about a fear as to what would, certainly they wouldn't want that to be my child that would have to experience that. So you have to look at the balance between what the majority would present with, and then what would also be the severity of those symptoms. Then looking at what has happened in the other countries and them opening up the schools, that's also what advised the South African government in terms of opening up the schools, because they do have a scientific plenary committee that looks at all of these and the information from the other countries. And it is supposed to be a stepwise process. As our educators had mentioned, even though it was seen to be a holiday, this was an opportunity to basically research what COVID is. It was an opportunity to get more information, and then also for the government to put into policies that would basically look at educating the educator, knowing the structures that we have within South Africa. Number one, we've got two systems, the public and the private. And we all know, due to the inequalities that predates 1994, that it's so unequal. And we can see that even today. COVID is just exposing that. But what's happening? Yes, completely. It exposes it. And not even just in the rural urban setting. It's exposing it in the cities where you have the component of your public schools and your private schools, where you have them living, coexisting. They're completely different in how they're functioning. And when it comes to healthcare, pre-94, they did have a nursing sister, and the educators can maybe guide of that, but definitely we had a health system within the schools, and this would be able to guide on many of the health issues that post 94. Unfortunately, that sort of dwindled away, and that became a community
Responsibility.
sort of like directive, and the clinics would take on that responsibility. But again, looking at our socio-economic standing within our communities, that's actually not viable, because what happens is that a clinic in a day can see up to 200 to 500 people. When do you have time to see students coming through that need to either report back to school if they're feeling better? Or so that system of pre-94 actually helped in terms of allowing for the child to be attended to immediately, notify the parents, they could pick them up, they could go home. If they got better, they could continue with the schooling system. So that's one of the issues that currently face the system. In terms of, again, when it comes to looking at what we speak about, let's say the three things that we mainly spoke about, which is isolation, sanitizing, and wearing of masks. When we look at the public sector, when we look at not isolation, but distance, sorry, not isolation, but distance, keeping that 1 meter to 2 meters. It's almost impossible within a public sector where you have 50 children doing that. So that was one of the things to look at, to say, okay, we have we've got 50 students in one class to one educator. Is it possible to divide those classes either into different classes for that duration of time? Or is it possible to bring them back at different time schedules? Unfortunately, again, this speaks to the inequality and some of the discrepancies within the education system, because there we don't have enough teachers. And then we don't want to also have burnout. Where you have burnout, stress on the system, again, you forget to then not touch your eyes, touch your face, touch your mask. So it will then contracting the virus. So all of those things, I'm looking at it from a health perspective now. Then when you're looking at sanitizing, the key thing about sanitizing is water and soap. Now, already when I was a student at Parkdale Primary in the south of Johannesburg, Eldorado Park, it was regarded as a good primary school. But some of the time there were some issues with water. Soap I don't even want to talk about. So what about currently, where those things that were provided by the government are not provided anymore? Now we're talking about providing of masks per student. So, I mean, that sanitizing, big issue. But now I'm talking about a south of Johannesburg school. What about when we look at Eastern Cape, one of the highlighted provinces? Again, it's like we're competing who wants to be the epicenter when it comes to COVID.
Good luck without borders.
We're glad to be back once again. We're grateful for our guest that's still with us. We just had a technical challenge with our system, but we're back. And so glad that Dr. Mary Adam is still with us, Apostle Gary Lamont, Renata Miles, as well as Simon White. Thank you so much. Your thoughts have just been very, very enlightening and so informational around what we can do. We're going to ask Dr. Mary, just finish your thought that you had, around some of the, preventative, pieces, that you wanted to share with us.
It was just about the remote learning and how we have picked up the fourth industrial revolution, particularly in our schools. And again, the teachers can guide me on this one. In 2019, or was it the beginning of 2019, when they tried to implement with the opening of schools the use of digital technology within the schools, providing laptops or providing iPads. Boards. Yes, and whiteboards, to sort of move away and also to make the schools green, go green in a sense. So that was the move. But again, in our context, things often tend to take a little bit of time. And so unfortunately, we got caught up in the COVID-19, and it again exposed the inequalities within our country, within our continent, basically, with access to Wi-Fi, with access to digital learning away from the school structure, because the idea about technology is that you can use it anywhere. So this would have provided also a good means of education away from a structural building. So I think important is that we really catch up when it comes to the fourth industrial revolution. And as educators, healthcare, we need to, and I mean, even faith-based, because we've seen with COVID-19, the real impact, especially at the beginning with Lockdown 5, was faith-based organizations. They really took the challenge of COVID-19 to reach the communities. And we're really appreciative of that, because without the faith-based communities, especially those living on the streets, those, when we speak about food security, those are the people who are on the ground listening to the people. So we really appreciate them. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. You've mentioned so many of the inequalities, that continues to exist in South Africa right now, from health, from economics, to education. And as we look at solutions, I think, we would want the government to understand that, you can't just make these blanket statements without realizing the inequalities that exist. I mean, South Africa is one of the most unequal countries in the world. That was not why our ancestors fought and died for. I mean, what's happening right now, in my opinion, is a perversion of liberation. And so there has to be a reckoning, with what's going. Certainly, we don't want to go back, to the years, of apartheid. However, we need to realize that if we are going to continue going the way we are going, then we will continue to what I call cruise for a bruise, and those who will be bruised will be the ones that look like us, and will be the ones that will be in our townships, while we continue, with an economic system that continues to perpetuate inequality and the devaluing, of, the lives, of the marginalized, the lives of the disenfranchised, around that. And these are the individuals that our public health folk work with, our educators work with, as well as our faith community work with, because we are on the pavement, we are in the streets, as we work with these folk. I want to pick up Apostle Lamont. When you shared some powerful thoughts, you lifted up, Isaiah 43 verse 19, which will transition us, towards, the end of our time together. The prophet Isaiah writes, "Behold, I am about to do something new. Even now it is coming. Do you not see it? Indeed, I will make a way in the wilderness and streams in the desert." There is a new thing that we need in so many ways and on so many levels. I'm going to invite you to give us, your vision of a post-COVID-19 South Africa, the new thing that must emerge, that needs to emerge in education, the new thing that needs to emerge around our faith community, the new thing that needs to emerge around, our public health, a system that we have, in South Africa. So we'll just invite each one of you, just to share, as we are in this time of audacity and adaptation, what would a post-COVID-19, what do we need to come to terms with in a post-COVID-19 in the Republic of South Africa? I'm going to start with Renata, and then, I'll go to Apostle, Lamont, and then Simon, and then Dr. Mary will close us out. Renata, your thoughts.
One thing that we have to realize is COVID is here to stay, like any other pandemic, any other disease. We're still living with TB and with AIDS, and we've learned to control it in a great manner. And likewise with COVID. So we will have to continue with the good practices, sanitizing, just social distancing, and many other things will have to be adhered to for as long as we here, and as long as we plan to make this a livable community around the world. We'll have to continue with the good practices. If I look at the education and in public sector, we have a lot of challenges, but we are also looking for a lot of solutions, because otherwise educators will lose their jobs if we say we go electronic and with devices all along, because only a limited expertise will be needed and required. But we also know learners need to socialize. I think Simon has brought that also, and Mary has mentioned that. They need to see each other. They need to understand the new rule under which they socialize now and are schooled. So we see the regular communication is key with our parents to understand a child is not wearing a mask because he's been punished at school or it's different at school. And when he comes home, you don't have to wear a mask. They need to know that sanitizing, like I said earlier and as I started, it should be a continuing practice so that we can just help one another. And this just becomes the norm, the new normal. Wearing your mask, talking to your friends and remembering all these things, that it's part of our very lives now. So we need to have our whole community involved, including our churches, Pastor Gary, including our churches, where we just do it in a simple way, like we have the Sunday school, even if it's virtual Sunday school, where we do all these good practices, even our devotion. I'm sure when you are doing your devotions, this is the great topic of COVID now, and how we don't fear it, how we're not anxious about it all the time, but how we embrace it and how we trust God in all this. So if I look at the education, to go back to that, digital learning is real, and we have to, like Mary said, we're going into a dispensation of where technology rules, and we see it with our learners. They learn so much better when there's a smart device in front of them. They prefer the device than looking at teachers and hearing teachers talking and educators talking all the time. So we'll have to implement. Our government, our NGOs, our big companies have to come on board with the education system. We all have to hold hands. Our churches, our social, any group that has the interest at heart. All stakeholders have to pull and bring in their bits so that we can have training for parents as well. I'm just looking at a scenario now. A child lives with a gogo, a granny, and this child needs a smartphone. Granny or whoever cannot afford it. So where will that child get a device to be in touch or online, or to learn online when he or she is not at school? So we have to look at things like that. Discipline at home. Even if you live in this small space, everybody at home must know now it is learning time. The television cannot be on loud music. It must now be tuned into the channels, the learning channels that are provided by our government, where children can also, a grade 4 learner must know, it's my time to sit in front of the TV if there's no other smart devices. I must sit in front of that television now and do my maths or do my natural science. So it's going to be a whole evolution, if I might say so, at home, where we will have to give each other space and our children space, and realize that they have to learn to work on their own as well. I would go as far as saying timetables must be set from the school side to the learners, to the parents, where we say, right, on a Monday, this is what we are doing. On a Monday, we are just like at school, where you have a timetable a roster that you follow. Likewise, a child must understand that even if I'm away from the building school, I'm still being schooled. Right. I'm still being educated. They have to be, so that means the whole family will be involved in education.
Absolutely.
Parents are going to learn anew to be involved and not say, I don't even know in what grade you are. Yeah. But they have to know even what technology is all about, what natural science is all about, what physics is all about. And it doesn't mean that you're going to master, by just guiding your child and showing an interest at that time when we online. That online learning will be happening. Because I think this is where children just, a child will always be a child. If you do not guide a child, if you don't tell a child, switch off, take out the earphones out of your ears now. You're not listening to whoever at this moment, Drake or whoever. You are not rapping now, Dr. Mary. You are going to use this time for formal learning. It's a challenge. A child, the minute you turn your back and you're going to hang the washing or do something else, a child will do as he pleases. He will just pretend. Children are good. They're very pretentious. They will, especially if they get that gap, they will sit with the book, do something else. That's a typical child. So this is where Mommy, Daddy, that is where you're going to come in now, where you have to just oversee. And us as educators, we mustn't feel left out. We must take charge of this education and say, yes, it's changing. Yes, there are challenges. But what am I going to do as an educator? How am I going to claim back that calling or that job of mine, that career? How am I going to not feel replaceable? How am I going to feel that I'm just dispensable? No. I have to step up. Every teacher, every educator has to step up. How innovative am I going to be? When I have that child once a week, Simon, how effective am I going to be? I have to plan. When that child goes away, that child must be motivated. That child must know exactly what it is that I require from him when he comes back. What assessments am I giving him? Towards what am I working? It's not just exams. I think we're long past the stage where we're preparing children for exams. Right. We're preparing them for life. Yes. So if a child is learning of chemistry from here, they will know when they go and cook at home. They can tell their parents that now I'm applying chemistry. Heat is involved here, or whatever, chemical reaction, the rate of reaction is slow, and there are internal factors, or whatever. But I won't go into my subject now, but what I'm saying is that it's going to be a reality check for all of us. All right. We are going to definitely have to be schooled from the gogo, the Uma, the grandmother, in a simple way. We have to find a way to meet one another. And to the parent who maybe feels, I never did matric. I was never in grade 12. But you are so much wiser, Mommy, Daddy. You're so much wiser. So apply that, and also just be with your child all along, nudging him. What are you doing now? What topic are you busy with? It helps a child to know that you are keeping tab on them. And then I would even go as far as with public schools. Let's have a timetable for all grades in terms of utilizing the television, where we know that every subject will be televised. Right. And at that time, a child will sit in front of the TV and watch the specific topic. Because you see, we give our children a ATP, which is the syllabus, the topics that we are busy with in school from week 1 up until the very end. And we also give them the time, even the time that we will spend on a topic. So children will now have to challenge me, Simon, and every other educator on. They have to come back with questions. Right. I did this on my own, but I don't quite understand that. Right. I think then you'll have more motivated educators, and they must prepare, because they will know a child will come back that once a week with questions. Yeah. And it will only happen if we hold hands and all stakeholders come to this party. And COVID is just one factor that influences. And we'll have already learned how to overcome that in terms of the situation. Sanitize, wear your mask, do what you have to do. All right. And once we're there, Kelvin, once we're there, then and we're holding hands and the stakeholders are together, then we say, right, so let's talk now. What is it that is challenging you at home? And we say what challenges us at school. But it's going to be a learning curve for all of us. And I'm asking educators who are watching, are we ready for this? Parents who are watching, are you ready for this? Whoever, the church, the social workers, health workers, are we all ready for this? Because like Dr. Mary said, we also need health workers at school. You know, we almost, without the first infection at our school, we all immediately, as we heard someone is infected, we all immediately had all the symptoms. We were all sick, waiting to die. We went into a emotional, panic. We panicked, all of us, adults, the children looked at us and said, immediately as they walked out of the school, it was on Facebook already. Oh, there was a teacher crying. Teachers were crying. And there's something happened. A teacher's dying of COVID. That was their perspective. And we quickly had to gather ourselves and say, we have to guide them.
Right.
Yes.
As much as we are anxious, we have to take charge. And we've taken our department, we've taken them on where they would give us, but it's SMSs and emails and WhatsApps on what we shouldn't do. But we said, we will do what works at school for us on a daily manner. What works today doesn't necessarily work tomorrow, but we will take it as it comes. Protecting the family, the community of educators, learners, non-teaching staff, whoever is part of that family, they are protected. Why? Because we each have a responsibility.
Right.
Can I just mention that we're supposed to have brigades? Brigades are now youngsters who are trained, who are unemployed, who are trained to come and screen our learners in the morning. They never pitched at our school. I don't know why. I'm not a politician. But you know what we do as teachers? We screen. We screen in the morning. We even have a timetable. And we bring coffee for one another. And we try and make it livable.
Right.
And because we realized one important thing. We have to conform to this new normal.
Right.
Whether it changes and policy changes, we have to adapt and adapt quickly before we really all are infected because we have chosen to be arrogant and blaming others. We can blame the department. We can blame the education system. But at school, they don't know about the few of us there, the 1,500 learners we have and the 50 odd teachers and 12 non-working. They're not focusing on us alone. Right. They have a larger community to look at. So while we're doing this and we're advising them in a capacity like, well, this works for us. Sometimes we need to be a little bit stubborn and adamant. No. We hear what you're saying, but this is happening here. This is the reality here for us now.
Right.
Come and help us. Come and advise us. Because you know what happens? Our superiors, they fell ill first. And our offices closed first. So where were we supposed to run to? Right. And we realized, wow, now we have to work here at school so that we don't end up closing every second week. So we had to take charge. We had to, and we don't want inconsistency in any child's life. Yeah. No educator wants that. Right. So it would be good to have the learners there. Having them in line, Simon, marching them, yes, being strict and telling them, this is, please, social distancing, please, wear your mask, post-sanitize, pre-sanitize, sanitize, wash your hands. I even told the learners, bring your soap because you gave them a little soap and tell yourself, I'm going to add a number to how many times I'm going to wash my hands. But you know what? We have one tap outside at our school, just one tap. Right. So now we have to work at it. Okay, instead of fighting and complaining about it, we've asked, are there people in the community who can come and fit us with more taps so that we can just help our learners? We have to take charge. So after complaining and crying and feeling like victims, we said, well, are we going to wait and die? Are we going to live like waiting to die because COVID is here?
So thanks so much. Let's stay with the education piece. Simon, you have anything to add to that? I know Renata gave us an exhaustive amount of, new things that we have to do in this new season that we are in and continue to live into, around it. Anything that you want to add from an educational perspective?
I like Renata's spirit. I think that's the right spirit. More so the one of taking charge when the elder leaders were kind of like infected first. But I think in terms of trying to be solution driven. But one thing I must say, a lot of the things that we are facing in South Africa, in my view, is primarily a leadership issue, and we can change the mindset. There has to be a deliberate, conscious understanding where from everybody, and the leadership must unfortunately take the lead in this instance. My wish list, in essence, is that as a country, as a nation, we need to reprioritize the importance of education, right? Our parents and our generation have fallen ill and have suffered the pains of apartheid, right? And to great distress. The current trajectory that we're currently facing is that the next generation of adults are going to be poorer and more illiterate than their parents as it is, if you look at the current trajectory. And we have to arrest that. We have to arrest that. So, and also, we are not immune to the global challenges and the global economic dynamics. We're part of the global economy, right? And there's no reason that our children should believe that the Chinese or the Israelis and the South Koreans are smarter and better than us.
Yes.
Right? Like we teach our kids, you know, they are there. They're going to be the presidents, and they're going to be the new scientists, the new innovators, and everything else. And the point I'm making is that we have to, as a nation, we have to reignite and elevate the importance of education.
Right.
Because when we grew up, we all know that our parents used to motivate us, go to school because that's the only option you really have to get yourself out of the mess and the turmoil of our lives and everything else.
Right.
You know, and we worked hard and we sacrificed.
Yeah.
Nowadays, education is like a Jamal. You know, kyk vir wie is unemployed. Hy het 'n matriek gehad, hy werk nou nog nie mee kom vertel nie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So education has lost its virtue in terms of hope, inspiration, and making us believe there's a better future.
Yeah.
So we need to urgently reignite and showcase the benefits of education as a country.
Absolutely.
And reprioritize what education can do.
Yeah.
And I think that's a starting point, because unless we deal with this thing from a strategic, psychological and philosophical point of view, and even a spiritual point of view, we would not grasp the importance of education.
Yeah.
It will just be another, by the way, jy preek al deur type of thing, you know, and I think that needs to change.
Yeah.
So once we change that, that's how we can get all the role players, and I like Renata's approach of the Magogo, the parents, everyone, the guy working in the garden, everyone needs to be involved in educating the nation in one shape, form, another. Yeah. You know, it's like we embark on a 5-year, 3-year program of deliberately reigniting education and its importance, you know, and look at different ways of doing it. And it's not to say that we can't. It's not to say that we don't have the resources, financial and human resources. We do, right? It's all about reprioritizing and reallocation of resources. There's enormous wastage in this country, enormous.
Yeah.
Right.
So we want to. Thanks for that. That's just great. You know, around it. Thank you for that, Simon. We're running low on time.
Okay.
So thanks for that. I want to ask, you know, Apostle Lamont just to share a little bit, you know, around how will a new thing look for the faith community as we come out of this. I mean, the scripture says, you know, talks about, you know, a road in the desert, you know, and it's a new season, you know, it's a new day. How will a post COVID-19, you know, new season look for churches and the faith community? Apostle Lamont, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Kelvin. And I just need to say first, before I go into the post, we have educators on the line, we have principals and the teachers and the doctors on the line. South Africans, we are very unique. I had the principal switch from English to Afrikaans.
Yeah.
And that's so unique. That's so unique of us. Very, very unique.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people that are tuned in that don't understand what he said, but that is us as Africans, or rather as South Africans. Very, very unique. As a church, as a whole, the Ecclesia of God, we find ourselves in a very difficult situation now, because when we started at level 5 lockdown, there was no church for almost 2 months. Now, if you have to learn a habit, it takes 21 days to learn any habit and to adapt to that habit. We had 2 months of no church. Now the churches are open. Those of us, Renata, that have church, social media church just don't work for me. Now that the churches are open, we have to obviously do whatever is necessary, humanly possible, do the sanitizing, do the masks, do the social distancing. And can you imagine, our building takes almost 550 people. Can you imagine having 50 people in the building doing social distancing with masks on, and no one says anything? It's a habit now that they've learned, and we have to undo that.
Yeah.
We have to undo that.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a difficult task. You're in church and you do some praise and some worship, and it looks like no one is singing. So we've already adapted. We've already adapted to the so-called norm or new norm that the world system is giving to us. We have already adapted to that. Can you just imagine that you have people that the only spiritual food they get is on a Sunday morning? And now for months and months, they didn't get it. So spiritually, they are dry. Spiritually, some of them are dead spiritually. And now you have to come and revive the dry bones, the dead bones in the valley. And you have to come and revive it again. It's a mammoth task. It's a mammoth task, but it's not impossible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because with God, all things are possible. With God, all things are possible. We face now currently with a lot of stuff as ministers, as the church. First of all, there's gender-based violence that is on the increase. It's rising every day in our country. There is joblessness. People are losing their work. And people are looking at the church to bring a solution, to help, to feed. We feed people almost every second week with parcels. Almost every second week. That's what we do. So it's a challenge for us. But I like the scripture that we spoke about, Isaiah 43. Reverend Kelvin, you read the latter part of it. I want to read verse 18. It says, forgetting the former things. Mm-hmm. Forgetting the former things. And Isaiah is not suggesting, nor is God suggesting in the scripture that we must forget COVID. God is not even suggesting that. He says forgetting those things, but we're going to go on further quickly with the next minute or so. He says forget the former things, and then he says do not dwell in them. Mm-hmm. Now God is not asking Israel to forget about the former things here. He's telling them not to dwell in it. In order for us to move forward in the church as the Ecclesia of God, we need to forget about, rather not dwell in COVID, but not forget about COVID. We need to not dwell in it. There's a difference between forgetting and dwelling. You know, God says forget those things. At this point in time in the life of Israel, they were taken captive by the Babylonians and they were in exile. They were not in Egypt. They were not slaves. They were just in exile. And they were longing to go back to worship their God. We are in that state now in the world. There are lots of people that are longing to go back to worship God. But God is saying to us, even in this COVID, do not dwell in it. Do not dwell in COVID, but forget about the past, forget about that we are going through the struggle and the pain. Do not dwell in it. And then he said, and then he goes on, he said, do not dwell on it. And then he said, see, with an exclamation mark. Mm-hmm. God said, see, I will do a new thing. Mm-hmm. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. What we see now is COVID, but God says there's something beyond COVID. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a life beyond COVID. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
And look at
of course.
1918 when we had the Spanish flu. There's still life after Spanish flu.
Yeah.
There's still life after Spanish flu. There still
We
will still
wouldn't
be life
do it.
after. Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
there will still
Absolutely.
be life after
Absolutely.
COVID.
Yes. Yes.
But the problem that we have
Mhm.
is that we don't forget, which is good, nothing wrong with it, but we dwell. God says, don't dwell there. Don't dwell there.
Yeah.
Rather dwell
Yes.
in the secret place of the Most High. Post-COVID, God is going to do a marvelous thing, because I believe post-COVID, the church will be more than vibrant, more than
Must. Must.
what we were before COVID.
Yeah.
I believe there's
Yes.
a remnant of God's people that God is raising up for a time such as this, and for a time after COVID.
All right.
If COVID is here to stay,
Yes.
that's COVID's problem. But there's for us.
Yeah.
We will serve the Lord in newness of life.
All right. All right. That's the apostle, the presiding prelate. All right. Now, we are out of time, but I do want to give the doctor just a few seconds to just close us out. You know, because you bring together for us, Dr. Mary, both faith and health. You know, given that you are a woman of faith and a doctor of medicine, so just close us out with a word up, and then we'll, you know, be grateful for that as we transition, you know, towards benediction.
Yes. I just want to say
Can I
thank you
just
to
say
our
something before the
educators,
doc
because
comes
I would not. Sorry?
Yeah.
Can I just say something before the doc comes in? This
Yeah.
is one of my favorite sayings. She's going to give us a pill, and we will give them the gospel.
Hey!
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm
Thank
down.
you,
Amen.
Apostle.
I'm down. I'm
Yes.
down. I'm down for
Yes.
that. All right.
So I just want to say to the educators, thank you so much. I always go back to my educators and often do a tribute to them, because without them, I would not be where I am today and sort of have the global view or the global thinking that I do, and sometimes still challenge myself, and even on platforms like this. So I say thank you very much for the work that you do and continue to do. And I know, like teacher, ma'am, you know, I said we must move to, remote learning. You can never replace a teacher, because you need a teacher
No.
to continue to motivate you, continue to inspire you to be great, greater than who you believe. And a computer can't
Yes.
put out those things, the niche of who you are.
Right.
So I want to just continue to encourage you as the teacher, as a principal, to continue to inspire us as young people. I'm still young.
Yes.
Young people
All right.
to do
Yeah.
great and to continue to want to do great things for our communities, and then for our country, to show off our continent and to be global players. Reverend Kelvin also gave me some very insightful thoughts and words. And one of the things that he said that really changed my perspective about education, when I felt like I was a little bit stuck. And he said that education is the great equalizer. So no matter what room you go into or get into, no matter what space you get into, education puts you on the same platform. So I would always encourage young people to go on and choose education. Any form of it. It doesn't necessarily need to be formal,
Yeah.
because I needed a
Yes.
formal education to pursue the dream that I have. So, but for others, access education in any form that you can possibly do.
Yeah.
I want to just commend Apostle Gary Lamont and Jaira Ministries International, because he left out a part where before the lockdown happened, when COVID was already in our ears and in our minds, he took on the responsibility to do health education in the church service. So he offered up time in the church service to actually educate. He took up 2 services, actually, I might say, to educate his congregation, his community regarding COVID-19. And I think that's a bold move. And this is what we're talking about, boldness and adapting to the situation. So I think that is something that we have to commend, is that's the type of community leaders that we need in communities that would say, you know what, this is
Yes.
something that my people need to understand, they need to participate in, because it will affect them directly.
Right.
Not now, but it's coming. So that's the type of leaders that we need. And I want to also, as per Principal White was saying, is that we need strong leadership that would guide us, not move from one part to another, fall on their feet. Because again, the Word of God says that how do you trust a man that is almost tossing and turning like the wind?
Right.
Because they double-minded. So we don't need that. We need leadership that is going to guide us with strong information, like strong scientific information, but also what will benefit our communities.
Great.
And
great.
then I want also what Renata had said in terms of conforming to what the pattern is. And the Word of God is also clear on that when he speaks in Romans 12 verse 2 about do not conform to the patterns of this world, but rather in the transforming of your mind, renewing it. And this will then test God's will. And this is perfect for the time that we're living in, because we need tested. We need to test our faith. We need to test what we believe in, because if we don't, we cannot come out as perseverers. We cannot come out as conquerors, warriors.
Yes.
So again, during this time, whether you're in health, whether in education, whether you're in faith-based ministry, we need to test our beliefs. And COVID is doing that, because it's taking out of us what we think we knew, and what we think we know. Because I can tell you, as Teacher Renata has said, is that, ma'am, every day in the health sector, we plan, we prepare, and we think we're on top of this COVID thing. But I can tell you, sometimes it can kick us in the butt. I'm not going to use stronger language than that, because we've got a minister. I don't want to minister, and we've got principal.
Great.
I want to just say that we need to really test who we are in this time, so that we can, as the theme of today is, be audacious in the things that we say, the approach that we take, and it will allow us to adapt to the situation. But certainly let's not conform, because COVID is teaching us as well that the minute we conform, I come in and slat on dear and dear.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Mary. I just want to thank you for your passion, each one of you, your vision, and your reimagination that you've expressed today on Faith Without Borders. And again, we want you to know that we certainly lift you up in our prayers. You have our partnership as you do what you need to do, for such a time as this. Let us continue to be courageous and audacious during these perilous, and tumultuous times, knowing, that God is with us every step of the way. He promised to never leave us nor forsake us, but more importantly, he reminds us that nothing can separate us from his love, and that we've been made more than conquerors. We will conquer this, and let's conquer it with our community and within our country as we continue to facilitate God's love and God's compassion. Much love to all of you, and so much appreciation
to you too.
And looking forward to our ongoing conversations and collaboration as we do the work that we've called to do. From South Los Angeles to South Johannesburg to Cosmos City, we love you. The Lord bless and keep you. And stay safe, stay strong, stay prayerful, and stay hopeful. Peace out.
Kevin, thank you for doing it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much.
It's exciting.
In the past 2 weeks, the number of cases of COVID-19 outside China has increased 13-fold, and the number of affected countries has tripled.
Be cautious when you go out there. Never think you are immune. Be cautious when you go out there.